Hey there, all you fellas and lady fellas. Welcome back to episode 3 of the Random Jam podcast. I'm Lane Mitchell.
I'm Reese McKinney.
And today we're coming to you live from Dallas, Texas. And we cover everything in entertainment news, which is including, but not limited to, movies, music, TV shows, and comics. And today we are joined by a very special guest and lifelong friend, a man that needs no introduction, but I'll go ahead and let him introduce himself because I'm nice enough to let him do that. The one and only Taylor Bogue. Taylor, how you doing today?
What is going on? I'm doing great. How are y'all?
Doing awesome. We're glad to have you here.
I'm glad to be here. I've watched both of your previous videos, and I was thoroughly entertained. So to be a part of it is absolutely an honor, and I appreciate both of y'all.
Oh, absolutely. So, Taylor, for the people that don't really know you as well, kind of give them a synopsis of who you are as a person.
Gotcha. So I am a musician, gamer, streamer, and in my professional life, I am a crime scene detective for a police agency. So I go around working the crime scenes where bad things happen to people, basically.
So when you're not doing that, you kind of need a break from the real world and you dive into some much needed comic relief through comics and music and games.
You know, it is never a bad idea to find an outlet, especially whenever you see a lot of stuff that I see. So it's good to come home and like immerse yourself in certain adventures, whether that be comics, TV, video games, whatever like outlet that I can find, I try to get into. So it's definitely a good stress reliever, and it's definitely something that I do on a daily basis.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like if you didn't have all that, you definitely would drive yourself crazy or, get a little too serious and, we don't want to be asking questions so serious.
Right. And they say you got to have a hobby. You got to have a hobby because if you live at work, especially in the job that I do, you'll drive yourself crazy or man, sometimes it gets a little darker for some of the people that work in that career. So not having that outlet, whether it can be whatever they choose to do, whether it's woodworking or just art or something like that, they got to have something to distract yourself from things. So absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So you heard it here, folks. All work, no play makes Taylor a dull boy.
Very true.
You say dull boy or doughboy?
Yes.
Maybe both, yeah, for sure. Yeah, that quarantine 15 it's a real thing. I think a lot of people are putting on a few LBs.
LB.
Ooh, wow. Is that a like through the camera jab right there, dude? I thought I was losing weight.
Well, the camera adds about 100 pounds. That's for everyone. So
wow, 100 pounds.
Well, a great segue for that is we're going to the next thing, and it's basically how y'all's quarantine is going. I'm imagining we're all kind of doing about the same thing. Diving into a bunch of comics, music, TV, maybe a little work on the side. So, Reese, how's your quarantine been going?
Well, we're 2 months into this now, so we're in this, and so basically, it's just really been finding any distraction that I can outside of working from home. It's been an interesting experience because you don't necessarily have that separation of work and home anymore. And so I really have to force myself to be like, okay, it's no longer time to work. I can, close my laptop and go on and do something else creative or just kind of relax and let my mind just kind of fizzle for a while. So I don't have to go crazy during all this.
Yeah. To me, I think time has become irrelevant. I wake up, which is great. And then I just go, well, it's a new day, I guess. I don't know if it's Tuesday or Saturday, but I'll make the most of my time.
For me, every day I consider Saturday. It's just there's 7 Saturdays in the week now, and I work about 5 of those. So,
yeah, pretty much. What about you, Taylor? I know you're still out and working as well. Are you working from home or actually having to go in?
No, so first responders, especially me, I work in a crime lab all day. So I never really got the whole quarantine thing. I still have to get up and go to work every day and then come home. So especially with all these people that do get quarantined and all that, and they have a emergency response they need us to go to, then I get not only exposed to what's going on out in the real world, but I get exposed to what's going on in people's homes and all that kind of stuff too, whenever we have to go out to all these scenes and process and do our documentation and all that kind of stuff. So I never really got a quarantine. I just kind of kept going with what I was doing. They just kind of limited what we could do, but we never stopped working.
Gotcha. So they might put some restrictions on things, but for the most part, you're still, toughing it out.
Still rolling every single day. Wake up, go to work, come home. And I'm also on call. So every time I get off work and I start to rewind and relax and all that kind of stuff, there's always a possibility that I'll get called to go work overtime and all that kind of stuff on a scene. So it's like negative quarantine, right? So that's whenever I get more exposed to things while I'm out there.
So you would say, or it's what we call it now, essential.
Yeah.
Well, there's always going to be bad guys, whether people are quarantined or not. There's always going to be crime. So I wish, and I'm going to be real, I wish that people would like take a quarantine pause and like stay at home and not go out and do things that require, police assistance and all that kind of stuff and response. So I wish I was quarantined. If more bad guys would be quarantined, I guess I could be.
That's so selfish of them, I bet if we put a bunch of flyers up or something, surely they'll go, oh, you know what? That is selfish of us. We'll stop.
Crime is closed today.
Strongly worded letter. Listen.
Not do it.
No more crime. Please.
No more crime, please. We're in a quarantine.
Stop.
Apparently crime is essential as well.
Yes, it is to some. Okay. And the sad part is you're seeing all these people that are staying quarantined at their home with their loved ones that can only like be with each other for a certain amount of time whenever there's no quarantine, that are now staying at home constantly with these people and is driving everyone insane.
Yep.
So obviously things are going to happen. So,
yeah, I'm sure domestic violence
I'm going to be
climbed all the way up.
Well, you would think so. But I've actually been looking at all that statistics and all that at particularly the agency that I work for, and we haven't seen as much like as I thought we would, but there is still some. But it's not as much as I believed there would have been, considering the amount of time that people are spending together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, I would have. Wow.
Yeah.
I guess eventually it got over. There's kind of like, well, I guess we did all the fighting we can do to make peace.
I guess we're going to have to be with each other for a while. We might as well try to get along. We are married, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, golly.
It definitely is a test of marriages and relationships right now, because you're not used to seeing your spouse or significant other this long during the day. I mean, it's great, but at the same time, it's such a shift of the routine that you're like, oh, well, here we are still. It's like you're not at work or I'm not at work, and we usually have this many hours together, and now we have this many hours. So it's like, what does that look like? It's been an interesting, I guess, what they may call it experiment, but it's definitely interesting, as an output of all of this.
Well, you're taking away all their de-stressors, and people consider work to be a de-stressor if that's something that they really enjoy doing. So it's either transition from home life to work life, and they can't do that. So now it's just built up tension.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they take away gyms and hairstyle places and all these places where people go to like talk and relieve stress and all that kind of stuff. So it's a good thing that they've just now started reestablishing all those places so people can actually get back out and start finding ways to relax and find ways to de-stress and get away and all that. So slowly making progress.
Yeah. What I was saying is, for me, the work home transition, I've been missing out. Usually I, leave my building and get on a train and ride for 30 minutes to get home and kind of de-stress in that way. And without that, transition piece in between work and home, it's just me getting up from my chair, walking to the living room. So it's kind of a weird replacement for that. Or if I do something else after work, I'm still sitting in my office. So it's one of those, it's a weird thing where I feel like I'm in like one place a lot.
Yeah. That's why you for sure have to go out for a walk every now and then, or, get a breath of fresh air, do something that'll keep you sane and not on the brink of insanity.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Well, I guess that about hits the nail on the head there. Quarantine. We're all in it together. All right, so let's see what's next on the list. I think this is going to be a good one for everyone. The Justice League Snyder Cut. It is real, and it is releasing 2021.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Reese, what can you tell us about that?
So Zack Snyder's cut of Justice League was something that nobody thought was actually real, but he kept saying on the internet that it is real. It's something that exists. And what started that was after the first version of Justice League was put out a few years ago, he actually announced a few months after it was released that there was another version. And the reason that there was another version is because he had to step out of the production of the original movie due to some personal things. And that caused them to have to bring in a new director, Joss Whedon, who also did Avengers, to kind of finish out production, reshoot some things, and rework the script, and as well as the studio getting involved in giving all their edits and things that kind of changed the whole vision of the movie, which I liked when I first walked out of the movie. I believe we all got to see it together a few years ago. But what was interesting to me is that there's this extra cut of this movie. This basically the director's cut of Zack Snyder's original vision, which is apparently much longer, has a lot more characters, a couple more plot points. So basically, that got released, or the press release came out that this is a real thing and it's coming out next year. So I, for one, am excited for it. I think it's going to be amazing. I think it's going to be much better than what we received a couple years ago. And yeah, so Taylor, what do you know about it, and how do you feel about it, and what are you looking forward to?
So this is definitely a hard topic as well, because I hate what happened to his family. But everyone understands why, and everyone understood that you were never going to get what he was going to offer, especially when you bring in someone with a different mindset. When you have a director that comes in and says, look, what y'all saw in theaters was probably 1/4 what I did. So you have so much opportunity, whether it's character development, story, everything. Okay. You have, whenever, kind of like you said, when they did the hashtag release the Snyder Cut back in 2017. Yeah. I mean, obviously everyone knew something was up. When you have Jason Momoa sending out tweets saying, release the Snyder Cut, everyone is just like, there is one. We need it. He saw it. We need it now. So I think when he said that they were going to do, where's my note? I wrote down some notes. When he said they have six TV style chapters that they're going to release of Justice League footage, nothing but excitement, because there is sky's the limit on what could possibly have happened in his story. He wanted to be darker than it was. You get a real DC just urge to just see what happened. Like what they had, like a possible $20 to $30 million budget. What they think can't say for certain what they think is going to happen. So I am absolutely thrilled that they're finally going to do it, because I don't know. Like you said, I enjoyed it for what it was. I enjoy anything that has DC content. I'm in. Okay. I actually enjoyed the movie. I wish there was more to it. And now we're going to get that.
Another great thing is you were saying that, he was going to make it much darker and a little bit more involved. That was part of the downside whenever he left production and they brought in a new director and the studio got more involved. The studio told him, hey, we want to lighten this up. We want to change the story. And so it became a completely different movie. So I can understand where the original, creator is like, well, I want them to see what I did. And so that's a really interesting situation that this is kind of created, because like something like this hasn't really happened. I mean, there's been director's cuts in the past, but those have been like, the studio planned on doing it. This is one of those things where everybody just like hassled Warner Brothers to like, release it. Okay, fine, whatever you got, we'll do it. We'll put it on HBO Max. And so that will be an interesting way to get people to subscribe to that streaming service, because it won't be in the theaters, but they'll have the opportunity to stream it from their home whenever they want to. And that's just really, really cool.
potentially 4 hours of director's cut footage, man. It's just, wow, what is it? It needs to happen now. I can't wait until 2021.
Elaine, what
Yeah.
consensus of this news and the possibility that Dark Side could be in this movie?
Yes, I mean, like everything else said at this point, and also to me, I feel like the plot could have been a lot bigger than what it was. To me, I like the way the characters interacted in it. I liked their relationship a lot and how they're introduced. That to me was my favorite part of the film. But like I said, I feel like the plot suffered because of Snyder's absence. So I think that for sure, that's what I'm most excited to see. Surely he focused more on developing the plot and making it a lot more in depth. So that's what I'm really hoping to see from it.
So recently, I actually went back and watched. I saw Batman versus Superman and Justice League, and kind of watched them and to see how different they were. And what's interesting is like Batman versus Superman. It's a longer movie. I watched the extended cut of that. It's a longer movie. Kind of fleshes things out a little bit better than the theatrical version did. And I kept rewatching it. There was a few things that I thought were maybe silly or goofy or didn't make sense at the time. But after rewatching it again, made a lot more sense remembering Zack Snyder's vision. With the hindsight, it definitely kind of changed my opinion on Batman versus Superman. But then watching Justice League again, a lot of like the tone, even the color grading was different. The way it was shot, the way the characters acted, it was just so different. While it still fit in the story that they were telling, as a separate piece on its own, it kind of didn't meld with Man of Steel and Batman v Superman as well. So that's why I'm really excited to see what this new cut of Justice League will do to those three films, watching them all together.
Yeah, absolutely. So there you go. We won't know until we know,
21.
Sad day. Had to wait.
I know, Taylor. Now I'm wishing it was 2021 already.
Well, shoot, maybe by that time this quarantine will be over.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully.
Maybe that'll be the film that ends it. All right, well, let's move right along here. Let's move on to movies and TVs shows. I know we've all probably seen plenty of those in the past 2 months. So we'll start off with you, Mr. Taylor Bogue, and we'll start with movies. So what movie do you have to bring to the table?
So I don't know. I've kind of got an old soul. So anything old, whether it's music or movies, I love. I actually started watching, I think it was the other day. I think it was just like 3 days ago, maybe. I can't remember. But I watched the 69 True Grit with John Wayne. I don't know about y'all, but I'm a huge Western fan. Anything that's old Western, freaking Tombstone, both the True Grits, I love them. So I don't really know. It kind of brings you more understanding, especially of the things that we take for granted because of the things that they didn't have in those movies and TV shows back then. So kind of like right now, it's like, I think yesterday, I was off yesterday because it was a holiday, and I sat at the house, internet was down, and we didn't have really much to do, so we just sat around and played board games. And I was like, can you imagine if it was like back in an old Western where that's literally all you get up and do is go work, come home, and you ain't got TV and all that kind of stuff. So I'm law enforcement, so anything that has to do with like old school Westerns with sheriffs and marshals and all that kind of stuff, I'm in anyway. And John Wayne, boom, you've got a dual interest of mine. So I dove back into the old Western movies, and True Grit was the one that really stood out that I watched just because of one of the acting, the cinematography, the story, everything about it was great. So if you haven't seen it, I don't know where you've been or what rock you've been living under, but there's two of them, and you definitely need to go watch both. So
yeah, absolutely. Growing up, my grandfather and my dad both, they just loved John Wayne. Like,
same here.
Loved him. And so, yeah, as I know your grandpa was probably, just that it captured that era so perfectly. And if you're a guy living back there, if we had been living back that time, I know we'd all be watching it together. That's just how it was. As a kid, I never really.
But the thing is, you got to realize too, every time that you went into one of these old people's homes or one of these elders, your dad and all that kind of stuff, they always had like the History Channel on, and there was either a Western or a black and white Western or something that they were watching every time. You would go into one of their homes. They wouldn't be watching it. TV would just be
no,
on.
This is background noise. And that's exactly it.
History Channel.
Yeah. It's funny. It's funny you say that because that's so true. Like I'd walk to my grandpa's house and they're just sitting there watching it, or not. They're just talking to each other and arguing over some topic that they were talking about 30 minutes ago. And it was like, okay, well, that's not what's on the TV anymore, but they're still just so caught up in their conversation. It's just like, golly, this is so funny. And yeah, I wouldn't even know what they're talking about half the time. I just had to kind of sit there as a kid and I was like, well, this sounds interesting. I don't know what they're talking about. It's a cool picture. They got guns.
They're nodding way, boys.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, I don't have no clue what's going on, but it looks good.
Always.
So that's funny. Well, all right, there you go. Yeah, True Grit for sure. It's a great film. It's a classic. Any John Wayne film, you're gonna, it's a classic, American classic. So, all right, Reese, what movie you got for us?
So the movie that I have is called Lovebirds, and it stars Kumail Nanjiani and Issa Rae. Basically, the movie is about this couple, played by those two actors, and they're on the brink of breaking up. The couple is headed to this party, and they're bickering and fighting the entire car ride over, when suddenly they accidentally run into this guy on a bike. And they're like freaking out. They don't know what to do. They're like asking the guy if he's okay. He's like, yeah, I'm fine. And he's like all bloody and just like not okay, obviously. And he runs off, on his bike, and they're like, oh my gosh, what just happened? And then all of a sudden this guy who is a cop comes up to him and says, I need to take your car. We got to go find that guy. He's a criminal. And so they're like, oh my gosh, okay. And so they go chase this guy around, thinking that they're about to catch him, and then they find out when they get to the guy on the bike after chasing him around that he apparently wasn't a criminal, and this guy that said he was a cop was actually a criminal, and they run the guy over on the bike, and it's hilarious. And this is all in the trailer, so I'm not giving anything away, but it is hilarious. The way that happens, I won't go into detail, but the best laugh out moment of the movie. But essentially that happened. Man. So they're kind of caught up in this murder mystery situation of like, well, we didn't do anything, but it clearly looks like we've done something because we've got like blood on ourselves. And this is like perfect theme for Detective Day here. But that's part of the reason why I chose it, because it was like about crime scenes and murder and stuff. And so, but essentially the whole story is them figuring out this case, trying to track down that cop that they met, and figuring out why they got into the situation, but then also what their relationship looks like at the end of this. So, like I said, lots of laugh out loud moments. It's one of those things where I was not expecting this to be this funny. I mean, I love Kumail Nanjiani as a comedian, but I wish I could have seen this in the theater. I hate that they didn't get that opportunity. It was on Netflix, so it is easy to get to. So if you have not seen it, go check it out. But highly recommend it for the laughs, the romance, and the action for sure.
Man, I would have. I don't know. I'd rather watch it for free on Netflix. I mean, sure, I pay monthly, but still.
Yeah, honestly.
Well,
that sounds great.
For sure, watching it, you're like, this feels like it was made for the theater. Like watching it with a group of people, laughing your heads off. Like that was the one aspect of this movie that I missed, is getting to have that communal experience. But both of us were just cracking up the entire time. Both comedic actors that were fantastic. A lot of the other were either unknowns or people probably seen before. But overall, I'd give it a solid 9 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. I don't typically love rom-com movies or anything, but the mystery aspect and the comedy really sold it for me. So if you haven't seen Lovebirds on Netflix, go check it out for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely going to check it out. I'm excited. So my movie is actually a documentary on Netflix, and it is called Have a Good Trip, An Adventure in Psychedelics.
Ooh.
So there you go. And it's hosted by Nick Offerman, so you can imagine how hilarious he is as a host. Just classic Nick Offerman style. I I'd say it's about 85% entertainment value and 15% of actual learning behind it.
Education.
Because they mainly brought in a ton of actors, actresses, musicians, just a bunch of famous people. And basically every person talks about a different experience they've had with psychedelics and how it alters their mind. Some people are like, yeah, I've done it like 500 times. Other people are like, yeah, I've done it 100 times, 50 times. And the one person out of the whole show that's like, yeah, I only did it once was Ben Stiller, because he talks about how he had a terrible trip. And it was like probably the most hilarious story, in my opinion, out of all that were told. So, I mean, they talk about, everything. And it's hilarious because Netflix takes all their stories that they've told and they animate it in such a way that's just like so hilarious to watch. Like literally Ben Stiller's, I was dying laughing because they made all these balloon animals come to life that looked evil, want to kill him, and then there's like things coming after him and chasing him. He said he's with a buddy of his, and he said he called his dad on the phone. Was like, Dad, what do I do? And he was like, I don't know. Like, what do you want me to tell you? And he was like, he just said, he was like, oh my gosh, like I had no clue what to do. And so it's a really funny show. I'm interested in criminal justice and psychology topics, as I know Taylor is. So yeah, Taylor, I definitely recommend it. What do you think about all that? Because I know you have probably a lot of stories about psychedelics and dealing with people that have been on them.
First off, it reminds me a little bit of Drunk History. It's just getting famous people in to come in and tell all kinds of stuff like that, and then they animate it. That's great. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
But you got a wide spectrum, kind of like they can do that show because they've got the hallucinogens, all that kind of fun party drug stuff that people have done just to have a good time, see what the experience.
We lost him.
Does. And then you look at Netflix and code enforcement, drugs are us, and it's just like the worst of the worst kind of drugs. So it's interesting to see because I've definitely come into contact with people that have been so like on a freaking mission on psychedelics and all that kind of stuff where I just see them bebopping down the road, like on the side of the road, and they're just naked. You don't know where they're going. They don't know where they're going. They're just on a mission. And I walk up. I had one while I was on call, and I was like, what are you doing? He's like, man. And I was like, do you know where you are? And he was like, I'm on the moon. And I was like, no. I was like, you're naked on the side of the road in front of Little Caesars.
So let me bring you back down to earth real quick. Show you where you're at.
Dude,
for real, the moment those cuffs go on, they go from just freaking their trip is over. But some of them sometimes the trip goes on into the back of the car and into the jail and they start singing Jailhouse Rock or something like that. But man, it's crazy because you have those people that can handle those kind of experiences and you have some that can't, and they freak out and then they go out in the streets and they act the way that they act. While on the other side of the spectrum, you have old boy sitting at the house who just ate a whole bunch of shrooms and is just like, whoa. So you can watch those shows. You can, because it's that side. And these famous people are doing these things. So you can watch that and it's more of a comedy rather than this other part that you don't see of the people using those kind of drugs as well because of depression and all that kind of stuff and have a completely different reaction. So I'm going to have to check that out too, because one, I'm interested. And like you said, Lane, I'm deeply interested in criminal justice and I'm taking those courses and I've seen it firsthand. It's absolutely just, it's an eye opener on both sides.
Oh, for sure. Because it covers so much emotion. Like you can have one side that's like, I mean, if you have a terrible mindset, like you said, depressed going into it, well, it's what you're going to get out of it, as opposed to someone in a perfect environment and happy-go-lucky, then, well, that's what they're going to get out of it. That's why you hear funny stories. But, and that's another thing, with the hallucinogens, like, I mean, you already know this, but, it alters your mindset. It doesn't affect you, harm you physically, whereas, like, a drug like meth or heroin, that is very detrimental to your body, not your mind. But LSD is kind of...
Depends on what you do while you're on those drugs.
Yeah, that's very true.
You try to jump on the back of a dragon and you end up jumping off the Taco Bell and you end up in the ground.
Yeah, see, that's on you though. Yeah,
you gotta be careful.
So don't jump off buildings. Yeah, because that won't get you in a good position. So.
Well, you've also heard that some of those drugs can be gateway drugs to other things. Now, people can argue left and right about it isn't, but you're always going to have somebody who has a research saying something. So I just urge people to be cautious when they even think about using that kind of stuff and think, is that really the path you want to take, and the possibility that because here's the deal. There are some people who have a perfectly sane mental state. They know what they're doing, and they just want to try that one drug one time. And then I've seen some drugs. I haven't seen it, but we've read there's stories and there are articles and there's research to where one drug can give somebody who may not have had the onset of schizophrenia, boom, they take a drug and boom, from that point on, it messes with them. So it's been it's weird how it affects your mind depending on the person that you are and depending on what kind of mental state you have. So yeah, some people just watch that and they say, man, that'd be fun. And then they try it and then they end up with a mental handicap, or they end up developing some kind of mental disorder or something like that. And that's kind of an issue as well. So the laugh, but be cautious while you laugh.
Yeah. And not only that, but a lot of times illegal drugs aren't being sold by the most reputable person out there, so you don't know what they can lace it with. Like, I'm not like, oh, well, I know I'm buying my drugs from Reese, so it's good quality. It's sold by, Timbuktu down in Szechuan, so it's like, I don't know what I'm getting. I don't know what's being put in my body.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that's anywho.
Sounds like a wild movie for sure.
Yeah. It was fun to watch for sure.
Based on your descriptions of what happens, and then you mentioned that they animate it and illustrate it, I can't imagine what that looks like. I mean, I've seen the trailer, and I'm sure that's only like a small percentage of what that actual experience is like, just what you're seeing on the animation. So it really intrigues me and makes me think, like, how did these people like get through something like that? I just don't get it, and it's something that's been, going on since, especially in the 60s and 70s, that like is just like latched onto the culture and just like still happening today. And whether, and like you said, whether it's a good trip or a bad trip, like that's the risk that you're taking, and where it takes you after that definitely will affect your life. So
yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing, nowadays we know about that kind of stuff. Back then they're like, oh, I have no clue what this is, but I'm going to try it anyway.
They didn't care. Like, nobody cared.
Yeah, they just put that in the news, I guess.
Yes. Yeah, they were doing it. They were having a good time. Now it's my turn. Give it here.
Yeah.
Wow.
Pretty much. So there you have it. All right. Well, I guess we'll move on to TV shows now. Taylor, what TV shows have you indulged in?
Okay, first off, I don't know if any of y'all have, I don't think y'all have seen it, but The IT Crowd on Netflix. Oh my gosh. So 2013 British comedy, okay, and exactly what you think it is. It's IT. People at the lowest bottom of the giant multi-million-dollar building, and they run the IT department. So basically, imagine if you know everything about IT. Boom, you're doing your job, you and your buddy, and then y'all just get a new head of your IT department who comes in acting like she knows everything, but in reality, she doesn't know anything about IT. So, yeah. So now, the very first episode, they go in and they find out that she doesn't know anything about IT because she's over there typing on the computer, and they're like, you don't blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to get into it because I want you to watch it. But they end up saying, you don't know anything about IT or anything like that. She's like, yes, I do. And they go over while she's tapping on the computer and like pick up her plug to the computer. It's not even plugged in. And she's just like. So they ended up sending her to the office. Yeah, right. So they end up sending her to the office, and they're afraid of getting fired. So they end up going back downstairs, and now they have to work with her trying to figure out what IT is all about while they know everything about IT. And every time someone calls, they're like, have you tried turning it off and on again? And then they hang up. That's it. But it is an absolute hilarious British comedy that y'all need to watch. It's great.
Who all was in the cast? Anybody we know?
Oh, hard question, but I can figure it out real quick. So there's one. It's good to mention that because there's one meme that comes out of that. No, there's two memes that come out of that show that not a lot of people realize it came from that show. And I hate to say it, but y'all seen that meme where it's just a meeting and there's people around a table and all that kind of stuff, and the dude just goes, stands up, walks over to the window, opens the door, and just hops out and just falls. That's what that's from.
Oh, okay. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
So let's get into it real quick. So the IT crowd is Chris O'Dowd and Richard Ayoda. Ayoda? Yeah. But it's got a whole bunch of like special guests that come into all that, like Matt Berry. I don't know if y'all have heard of Matt Berry, but he's been in that. He's been in Community. He's been in a couple other shows that are just really, really funny. And he ends up being the boss after his dad jumps out the window. So let's see. The meme. So there's another meme where Richard Ayoda comes out of the bathroom in a pink robe and he's just like, hello, or morning. That one. Those are the three main actors that it circles around, or four actors that it circles around. And it's really funny, y'all. I can't stress enough how many times I've watched it from start to finish and then just restarted it.
Nice. How many seasons?
Age is like fine wine. There are 5 seasons. And they tried to actually bring it, because it was a British comedy, they actually tried to bring it to America. And they were going to bring, I think, one of the main actors from the original British over here, but it didn't pan out. And I wish it really would have. But you can't, like, it's kind of hard to copy those shows and make it as good as it was, especially whenever you loved that one. And I hate to use it as an example, but The Office in America was a lot more popular than one in British. But people still love the people who acted in it, but it just wasn't as popular show like that, and try to remold it and make it as funny and as popular as it was. So I'd rather them not doing it and run one of my favorite shows.
Right. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Exactly. Just add more seasons.
Yeah, just keep it going if it's having enough success.
Yes, logic. But not
Absolutely.
Everyone thinks that way.
I know, it's a shame. Not everyone's a genius like me. So, all right. Well, on that note, Reese, what show you got for us?
So the show that I've been watching is called Manifest, and it's a show that's on live TV right now, which I know that's wild, but there are still showing new shows there, and it's on NBC, and it's been running for maybe a year or two now, so it's pretty recent. And basically, the plot of the show is you have these passengers on a plane that are coming back from their trip from Jamaica. And most of them are strangers. There's a few families in there that you get to know in the show, but mostly everyone's strangers. And something happens on their flight back. They hit this like storm or some kind of turbulence, and all of a sudden, like that happens, and then nothing, and then everything's fine, back to normal. And then what happens in the major twist of the show that you find out when they land is that when they land, they find out that 5 years has passed since they were gone on their trip. And nobody knows why. It's such a big mystery. The people that were not on the trip, they continued on with life and, did things, got married, and people passed away, and kind of life just kind of went on for 5 years. But the people that came back from the trip, like, hadn't aged. There was like no sign of like 5 years passing. And so they didn't realize that until they landed. And then they're like, oh my gosh, what is going on? So you can just imagine how those people, what they're calling the survivors of the flight, are feeling during all this when they returned home, and in all the different like situations that they put themselves in. For instance, one of the main characters, he was married and had 2 kids. Well, he took one of the kids with him, and the other kid stayed back home with the mom, and they come to find out that she had already like remarried, and then his daughter grew up while he was gone. So lots of wild things like that, and kind of all these people having to cope with that and in this shared experience. And without giving too much away, it's a great show. It's a lot of unknown actors in it, which is it's kind of good because you can connect with these characters a little bit better. But the best that I can explain it, it's like Lost meets Inception meets Doctor Who.
4400.
Mystery aspect of it. It's really like it gets at first it's like a mystery, and then it becomes a science fiction mystery, and then you're like, oh my gosh. So I highly recommend if you haven't seen the show. It's very much so of like Lost, but in the same way, it's a little bit more grounded and realistic. So, but yeah, have you guys heard of Manifest?
I haven't. So I'll check it out because I never saw Lost either. So, I mean, I'm familiar with it, but yeah, I've never seen it before. Is it on Netflix, you said?
No, so you can watch the first 2 seasons on Hulu. I started with episode 1, like I said, a couple years ago, and we've been watching it week to week. And like I said, they just finished, I think, back in February, back in the fall, I think. Either one of those, they finished season 2. So, and then they left a giant cliffhanger there, which I obviously won't spoil, but seeing the journey that these survivors go through, and then the things that you find out about them post flight or post their vacation is really interesting. So I would highly recommend checking that out on Hulu and catch up before season 3 gets started again.
But yeah, that sounds like an awesome show. Definitely check it out on Hulu. Okay, well, speaking of Hulu, my show also is streaming on Hulu right now. Nice. And the newest season of it came out, I don't know how long ago, but it must have been relatively recent because I am indulging in it. But it is Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which I'm pretty sure everyone has heard that show at some point or another.
Oh yeah, we've seen it.
So I'll keep mine short. Yeah, I'll keep mine short because I'm sure everyone knows about it. It was funny because I read a review about it and someone described it as Seinfeld on crack, which I think that's pretty accurate because yeah, I know Taylor can attest to that because it's just the main character just getting wacky situations and there's no boundaries whatsoever, which is so great about it. But Rob McElhenney, he plays Mac. He's the main guy behind everything. Danny DeVito, of course, if no one knows him by now. Charlie Day, Glenn Howerton. I mean, they're all fantastic. And then there's Dee, but no one cares about Dee. No, Caitlin Olsen. She has that one show. I forgot.
Shut up, bird.
What is it? The Mac or something? Or Mick? The Mac? Big Mac? But yeah, they're all. I mean, so Always Sunny has basically made all these actors and actresses, and now they all have been featured in every type of movie or show now, or made a cameo at least once.
Mm-hmm.
But besides Danny DeVito, who's been around way before it. But it's just such a funny comedy, so off the wall, and you never know what you're gonna want to get. But like this newest season, I feel like it got a little more refined. I don't know if that's a good word for it, but it feels like the shots got a little better. The humor is still very vulgar, but I don't know. It seems like they're kind of taking a new approach, but not really at all. So like they're going forwards, but they're also going.
That show is nothing more. That show is nothing more than people who have reached the peak of television and are just doing whatever they want and are having a good time with it at this point. They don't care.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah. So
and I love every single episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just heard
we'll leave it at that.
I just heard that they renewed for season 15, if you can believe it. And apparently that broke some records, which is wild to think that show has been on or about to be on TV for 15 seasons.
Oh yeah, because if you go back to season 1 right now, you'd say there's no way this show is going to get to 15 seasons.
Exactly.
Like, there's no way this is like people are going to get offended like left and right. Like
you'd bite your tongue. Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's surprising honestly because in today's climate especially, but it's just I guess it's a great enough show to keep going because people are still watching. I know I am. So there you go. So,
Well, you got to think about the level of comedy that they got. They've gotten to the point where people are now PC and all that kind of stuff, and it's the only show that has kept its consistency from season 1 to now, despite all the changes that are going on right now. So it's doing nothing but getting better and better, and just not reaching or not adhering to the social norms, which makes it great.
Right.
Because now everyone's just like, they're rebellious, they're great storytellers. I want to be them because it's not where we're at right now, and it just.
Yeah, it just goes off on a tangent.
It could definitely inspire other shows to do that or create new shows from that.
Yeah. It's for sure one of a kind.
I love that we just keep cutting you off. This is definitely that one show that no matter how you say, all right, we're gonna move on. No, that we could just keep going, and this could be the entire podcast.
I know, that's what I'm scared of. I know we could talk about it all day. So, but yeah, it is what it is.
You can't really explain it because there's not really a overall plot.
That's what I'm saying. When people ask me, like, what's it about? I'm like, they have a bar and they just are crazy. That's all I can, that's literally all I can describe it as. They just do whatever.
It's not a book.
It just is.
It's not a book. It's fables.
Yeah. Each episode is just a new story and a new adventure altogether, which is great because, it's like they're not going to run out of material, it seems like, because they've come up with so many scenarios, and you're just like, and they also stay relevant too, because in each season they bring up something that's going on in the world at that time, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and they kind of use that art to kind of speak on that subject and kind of give their take on it. And like Taylor was saying, may not be the most PC response, but it's something that definitely gets a reaction out of people in a positive or negative way. It just depends on where you're at on that topic. They'll run head first into it, with no question asked, from what I've noticed.
Right. Oh no, yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're not worried about
Very
offending.
much so.
So, anywho, I think, like I said, that wraps it up. But we could keep going on and on forever about it. So just go see it. That's all we can say. All right, so I guess we'll move on to music.
All right.
I know, music's the best. Taylor, what music have you been indulging in?
I've been listening to a group called Cold War Kids. So first off, let me just describe what kind of musicians they are. So their music is, they're labeled as an American indie rock band from Long Beach, California. Yeah. So they are stated to be a blue-eyed soul group. Now, I don't know if you've heard what a blue-eyed soul group is before, but I looked it up online, and it says a blue-eyed soul group is a rhythm, blues, soul music performed by white artists. They have their own genre of music. Whatever. I never heard of that before. So the album that I'm talking about is called New Age Norms 1, and it is absolutely a straight banger. So, man, I listened to this song called Complainer, and if I close my eyes and wish hard enough, I felt like I was listening to like Prince a little bit. They use a very good variety of using their regular voice, head voice, and falsetto, kind of like he did. So it's very funky and really, really good. The lyrics are great. The singing's great. The music's great. And they have a really good album cover, which you will see probably in the video. So, man, I would give it a shout out any day of the week. Okay, because no matter what they do, any song on that album is a banger that you're going to tap your toe to and you're going to sing to.
And what year did the album come out?
So this album came out in 2019.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so
New Age Norms 1.
Do you know how many?
Yeah.
Before this one, or is this like your first one?
See, and that's the thing. That this is the first album that I've never heard of them before. This popped up on my, I think it was just my Apple Music random station that I created off of one of my songs. Yeah, and it just popped up, and I was like, "Oh shoot, okay, I like this." As far as the music that they've done, I don't want to give a number that I don't know. I wish I did, but I can't say for certain how many albums that they've had. Hopefully a lot, because they're freaking great.
I've definitely
Yeah,
heard
you know,
it before. It's a familiar name.
Do what?
So I've definitely heard of them before. It's a very familiar name.
yeah, they actually
Yeah, it's definitely sticks out.
the first song I'd ever heard by them was actually called First, which was kind of a hit. And that came out, it reminds me, it was like my junior year, so it would have been like 2012, I think, is when that came out. 2011, 2012. So they've been around for a while. That's funny you said that name, because that brought back instant memories. I was like, oh yeah, I remember them.
Well, they progressed.
Well, that's good. We don't want them to degress, so that's a good sign.
What are some of the other songs?
That is a fair point.
Yeah, I'd say, what are some other good songs that off the album they'd suggest? Like, what are your top 3?
So, I'll give you my top 2, okay? Because I'm not going to give you too much, because I don't want you to go and search for these songs and then be disappointed with the album. So, Complainer is definitely my number 1, and I think my number 2 is also going to be the second star on their album. If you go and look on iTunes, you know how it has their like recommended stars next to the ones that are straight. Awesome.
Right.
But Dirt in My Eyes is another great one as well that I would suggest for you to look at and listen to. Same difference. It's the same music, different style. So you're not listening to the same song over and over and over again, which drives people nuts, and drives me nuts too. But those are the 2 that I'd recommend. Go listen to Cold War Kids, New Age Norms 1, Dirt in My Eyes, and Complainer.
Awesome.
Well, yeah, for sure. We'll do. I'm excited. I haven't heard them in a while, like I said, so definitely gonna check them out.
You better be.
Right.
You better be excited. They're great.
Yeah, I'm ecstatic.
He had you at like gunpoint.
I know. I felt threatened. I was like, okay, I am excited.
Obey the law.
That's right. All right. So, Reese, what music have you been diving into lately?
Man, so the most recent album that I actually picked up is brand new. Just came out a couple days ago, called Tension by the band Anchor and Braille, which, if you don't know, is the solo project of Stephen Christian, who is the vocalist for the band Amberlin. So,
yeah,
if you're a fan of Amberlin, I highly, highly recommend that you listen to this album, especially since we haven't got any kind of new music from Amberlin in almost like 6 years. But basically, it's kind of like a pseudo Amberlin album per se. But to kind of walk you through it, it's definitely a project that's really cool to check out by Stephen Christian, because he's done 2 albums before, or 2 or 3 albums on the Anchor and Braille project in the past that I checked out a few years ago. I was like, well, this is really cool. It's very folky. There was some acoustic stuff on there, as well as a few full band arrangements that were like super ambient, sort of like Amberlin. So that's kind of what sucked me into it at first. But this album, Tension, just took that and just took it to another level. So the best way I can sell this album to you is it sounds like if Stephen Christian took Amberlin and they remixed some of their top hit songs and basically put like a top 40 twist on it. So you have all these different styles throughout the album, whether that's like, which was a big departure from like I said, the folky ambient style of the previous albums. He completely took this a different direction, and his vocals on this album, you talk about how great he is in Amberlin, he takes that to another level as well. He does things vocally that you've never heard him do before, which is really interesting, because you're like, wow, I didn't know he could hit that note, or, oh, I never heard his voice in that style before. So him kind of taking that pop vocal approach to these songs was something new and fresh, and really got me excited. Some of the key songs and highlights for me that you should definitely check out if you want to hear the whole album, or if you want to check out these singles. Eventful Horizon, which is a very dynamic kind of pop ballad, but it has this massive chorus where he just lets loose, and then instrumentally it just like picks up and then goes back to the verse and drops back down. So like that's a very powerful lead single that he put out. And then another great single which was super catchy and groovy, and honestly like it felt like I was listening to a top 40 song in a good way, called Dangerous. And even just saying that melody just gets, it's like an earworm. But highly recommend checking out that one. Another one that's kind of like a 70s disco ballad kind of song is called Tethered. And he does some really interesting vocal runs and melodies in that. The hook on that one is very, very catchy for sure. And then a couple other songs to check out: Slow Motion, Phantom Pain. Those were just overall instrumentally excellent, and the production's just fantastic. There's a lot of really cool sound that like I haven't even heard on pop radio before that he's doing in these. And like I said, his is on another level, like stuff that you would have never imagined him doing that he completely pulls off. So highly recommend y'all check out Anchor and Braille's Tension album. And what are your thoughts?
First off, I love Amberlin. So anything that's got him singing anything, I'm in, because I can't get enough. I know on their last live performance, they said they might be putting out some new music. Yes. So just having a sense of hope that we're going to be listening to Amberlin again, I am definitely game to give his solo album a shot, because, or his, side project a shot, because one, great musician, talented songwriter, great stage performer. He's got the whole package. Why wouldn't you like him? Why wouldn't you like them? Yeah. So absolutely 100% agree. We'll check out.
Yeah, this will definitely like hold you over until that new Amberlin comes out. And the crazy thing is like he doesn't play these songs live, so like you never really know what this project sounds like live, because most of his releases have just been albums. And so yeah, there's something to consider there, to where it's all just album releases, but it will definitely hold you over. Lane, have you got to check this album out yet?
So I've only heard the single that was released from it, but I loved it because it wasn't, like you said, it wasn't the more folksy stuff he's done with the past two albums. And I really wanted him to break the mold here. And you just now saying that, I was like, kind of confirmed it with that single. It definitely feels like he was splitting off in a new but great direction. And I'm really excited to listen to it top to bottom. Because like the past albums, I love just going on a car ride and listening to them. I mean, it was great. It's great music to just chill to. Like, it's so relaxing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm super excited, especially if he really showcases his talent or his vocal talents in this.
Yes.
That's exciting to me, because it seemed like he didn't really. I mean, live he would do that with Amberlin for sure. I mean, he did some incredible notes, but more it felt like the recordings he would kind of hold back a little bit to give everyone some spotlight, because he's just that kind of guy.
Right.
But yeah, I'm really excited now that you're talking about it. It's getting me pumped up to listen to it top to bottom. I just really want to zone in and just block out everything else and really dive into it. So I'm definitely going to do that this week.
Yeah, I listened to it a couple of times. The first time I listened to it, I was sitting in the office and kind of just taking it in, not really paying attention to everything, just kind of experiencing. And then just the other day, I was out running some errands and listened to it in the car, top to bottom, and it just had a whole different experience. Like you were saying, driving around.
Yeah.
I like to kind of do that, listen to albums in different environments and see how they speak to me. Like there were songs that jumped out at me during the car ride that didn't jump out to me when I was listening at home. So, right. But basically what I would take from this album is awesome instrumentals, really innovative production, crazy good vocals, and I would really hope that they take some of these elements and possibly bring those into Amberlin's next album. Like, it may or may not, but I think that would be really, really interesting to see what Amberlin would sound like with some of these themes brought into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a good chance that could end up happening. So, never know.
I can hope so.
Yeah.
That's about
I'd
it.
be pumped up.
Yeah. Oh, straight away.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm on board. Like Taylor said, if it's Amberlin or anything Stephen Christian, I'm on board 100%. So, yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Well, there we go.
Attention.
All right. So we're going to go ahead and switch gears. My album is actually a little more old school, and it is from the year I was born, actually. So this will tell my age, our age, I guess, all of us. 1994.
Except for him.
And it's, well, okay. Sorry, Taylor, you're the old soul here.
I'm out.
No, but that is none other than Weezer's Blue album,
Right.
which, fun fact, was my very last album for the Facebook challenge. So I ended it, I think, right. Weezer is just one of those bands that's just has evolved so much through the years. I've loved them, ever since I started listening to them. And what's crazy about them is that this album, as y'all know, has so many hits on it. I mean, it's got like Buddy Holly, My Name is Jonas, Say It Ain't So. And it's incredible to me that they packed an album with such great hits, but continued to evolve. Like, that's really hard for a band to do, to pack so many great tunes and then keep it going and keep it rolling.
For sure.
And they did a really good job of that. But I love the dynamic of this album. It's so, even the songs you don't really know, you can still sit there and bob your head to, because you're like, well, I don't really know the song, but it's familiar to me without getting boring.
Good head.
So, yeah.
Very
so,
true. Sure.
yeah. So I don't know. Weezer just, they bring me comfort in these times. And so, yeah. I don't know. Do y'all have anything to add to that?
Weezer's very interesting. I mean, they can take like really anything and make it just Weezer. It's hard to say, okay, this person sounds like this person sounds like this person. Weezer is one of those bands that actually, when they play music and stick out, you go, that's a different song, but that's Weezer. It's like it's their own style, and they've been doing it for so long that they have like created this fan base that knows Weezer is going to put out new music. It's going to be great, but it's also going to be different. Right. And we're still going to be able to say that's that same band that I fell in love with in the 90s, 2000s. Now it's just that's their that's their like key element that makes them such a good band and makes people just keep coming back and going to shows. Yeah, and Weezer's great.
They've almost kind of created their own genre within, punk rock music.
Right.
We know it, to where it's like you have all these bands, Green Day, Fall Out Boy, that kind of created their own version of pop punk. And then you've got Weezer over here in this little pocket universe that's kind of also influenced those bands and other bands, but like kind of reinvented that each time they put out a new album.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think, especially with their, what was it, the Teal album where they did nothing but covers, that to me is so cool to see a big band like that covering other big band songs. And it's like, it's not beneath them to do it. And they also do it in such a way that, like Taylor said, it's so Weezer. Like, they're not trying to copy them or replicate what they're doing. And they're not trying to show them up. They're just like, oh, we want to try it out and see how it goes for us. And, I mean, it's just amazing because they seem like such, like, awesome dudes. Like, I'd love to hang out with them because I bet they're just so normal. Just like, oh, yeah, it's just kind of – it is what it is. And like I said, they're in their own universe. Like, they just do what they do best, and that's it. And they stick to such like bare bones. They're not like over the top in their production. Like, it's just so minimal stuff, but they do it so incredibly well that you're like, wow, like it sounded like there was so much more sound in that space than what it actually was. Like, you're thinking like big arena stuff, but it's just straight guitars and yeah, it's just.
And it's kind of like you said. I mean, it goes back to our concept with It's Always Sunny. They have reached the point where they're just having fun, and we're just along for the ride. And we're going to keep doing what they do, especially with the covers too, man. I mean, it doesn't matter what they play or how they play it. It's always going to be unique to Weezer, despite it being someone else's song. So I'm on board.
I mean, the fact that they covered Africa by Toto, that was a massive song, especially in recent years. And for them to step up to the plate and completely knock that out of the park and surprise everyone, that was really cool to see.
And you have those people that are now going to say, hey, did you heard that song Toto, right? And they're like, oh, by Weezer? And they're like, no. Okay, first off, yes, but also
yes,
the Africa
but no.
song. I mean, it's yeah. I think
Yeah,
I got
that's
that
true.
reversed.
I wonder if, well, yeah, we get where you were going.
I did. You knew what I meant, though, so it's okay. You know what I meant.
Yeah, we know what you meant. The Toto by Weezer Africa, right?
Yeah. Weezer's
that's the one.
Africa Toto album. Yeah,
That's it.
Yeah,
I like that one.
Banger.
It's one of my
Straight
favorite
banger.
ones.
Comes out next year.
So what are
Yeah, I heard that.
what are your highlights from this?
The highlights from the Blue album?
Yeah.
Honestly, to me, Buddy Holly's a big one. My Name is Jonas. Say It Ain't So. I mean, also I could list the whole album. Wax Surf America. That's another, I think, underrated one that's really good. Undone, the sweater song.
Mhm.
That one to me is really special because I actually got to see them perform it live when they played with Panic at the Disco a while back. It was about, I think, 4 years ago. And that was really cool because it just captured, it was such a Weezer moment because they like, it was raining and they just kept playing. Like, they're like, we don't really care. Like, we're just going to keep playing. Like, so what? And so Undone Sweater songs are really one of my personal favorite ones off that album because they're just playing through the rain. I was like, wow, these guys are like just it's so rock and roll, man. But yeah, it was it was a fun concert. They just put on a really great show. And like I said, they actually didn't headline it, which was crazy. It was Panic at the Disco headlining it. But again, they don't, like, they're just kind of like, we're just glad to be here. Yeah, and they're very humble dudes. Like, they're just good people. So, yeah. So there you have it.
It's an important album for the genre, and coming out in '94, it's that just like sparked so many bands that were inspired by them in the 2000s, and kind of just started a revolution, basically.
Just pure, unadulterated rock. So there you go.
Nice.
All right, well, I guess that sums it up for music. Guess we move on to comics. So, we've had a lot of time to read. If you can read, Taylor, what's your comic you got for us?
Did he just
I
say
haven't been able to read in.
You can't read? Ooh, okay.
No,
we're going to cut that one out.
That's why I like pictures. That's why I like comics, because they got a lot of pictures that I can follow.
Hey, there's a lot of
pictures. There you go.
So.
Yeah. And pictures worth 1,000 words, so it's hard to mess that up.
Sometimes I don't even.
Well, I can't say it's worth 1,000 words because I don't know how many that are.
You don't have that many in your vocabulary, so.
What's a vocabulary?
Exactly.
All right. So it's May 2020, which means as of April, we have reached the second anniversary of when the Dark Knight Metal comic series ended. So 6-issue core miniseries that launched a whole bunch of other series that people just could not get enough of this comic. So I actually have the very number one Dark Knight's Metal that is signed by the freaking creators themselves. So Scott Snyder took a character, Batman, that everyone knows, okay, and said, what if Batman was a bad guy? Not only that, what if he had multiple versions of himself, that different powers, different abilities, with a story that put him against Batman, the Justice League, and so many different characters, and said, multiverse versus Batman, go. And everyone just went, I'm sorry, what? So I would suggest you look at that because first off, it's a crazy thought, okay? Because you have Batman, one of the most intellectual, complex, most bad A character in the DC universe that is capable of so much available to take. See how excited I am. Able to take down so many superheroes with just himself. And now you have different versions of Batman with different superpowers that his friends have, like a Green Lantern power ring, or super speed, or the helmet of crap. I just lost my train of thought. The helmet of Ares and all that kind of stuff. So it's interesting to build a story around one of your favorite heroes being a bad guy. And they throw so much emotion into it because of the stories and the backstory that happened to these bad Batman that drove them down that path is absolutely tragic that you wouldn't expect to see. but when you see it, you're shocked, but you're interested to know what happens next. And that's why they had that 6-issue core miniseries, but there were so many issues that came out of each one of those series that gave more backstory and more story to it. So Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo, excellent writers and artists, just created a beautiful, great story. Y'all need to check it out if you haven't. I'd love for them to make a movie.
That'd be cool to see that come to life on the screen.
Yeah, they probably won't, but
yeah,
you never know.
You never know. And Reese, or Lane, I know that you said you love the Sandman series, and the Dark Knight's Metal I think it was the one that brought the first appearance of Dream of the Indus, whatever, from the Sandman series that you like so much into the DC universe as well, into their part of the DC universe as well.
Wow.
Oh, interesting. So okay.
Into the Vertigo universe, essentially.
Yeah, I was saying, because DC Vertigo, they are together, and well, that makes too much sense. Interesting. I might have to check it out just for that. All right, you got me hooked. You could have just said that to begin with.
And that would have been
it.
Forget the story. Just bring in the Sandman people.
Just say Sandman. I'm there.
There you go. Boom.
I think
awesome.
One of the stories that spun off of that is the Batman Who Laughs, which is like the Batman, if he's like this, Joker kind of character, but like kind of demonic looking. And I have the miniseries that spun off called The Batman Who Laughs, 7 issues. Haven't got to see it yet, but looks really interesting for sure, coming off of the Batman the Metal universe.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. All right. We'll definitely have to check that out then. Never know. So, Reese, what do you got for us?
So, my pick for this week is kind of going with our overall theme today, law enforcement and detective. The choice that I have is Savage Dragon by Image Comics. So if you've been following us the past couple episodes, I've been kind of going through the beginnings of Image Comics in the early 90s and kind of walking through each title, starting with Youngblood by Rob Liefeld, Spawn by Todd McFarlane, and now going into Savage Dragon by Eric Larson. So Eric Larson wrote this. He's the creator and the artist on this book, and it's still running book today. Which recently Spawn hit its 300th issue and broke a record. And now Eric Larson's kind of coming up into the 200s of his book too. So he's going to be catching up to Todd McFarlane's Spawn pretty soon. But if that tells you anything, that it's a great book and people are still interested in it, even after 25 years. So essentially what Savage Dragon is, it is a creature, man, hybrid character who has a big fin on his head and has these, mutant abilities to him, super strength, and essentially kind of looks like a dragon dude. But his character is based in Chicago, and he works with the Chicago Police Department. And basically his backstory, it's not super in-depth just yet. I only read the first 3 issues, which is like his introductory miniseries. But basically what we know about Savage Dragon is the police department found him at a giant building fire wreckage. And when they found him, he didn't know who he was. He didn't know anything about him or his life. But what was weird is he knew everything about everything else. So they would ask him, like, who's the president? He'd be like, oh, George Bush. And then they'd be like, who played so-and-so in this movie? And he'd be able to tell them. But, like, he could not tell them where he came from, what his life has been, and what his name is. So that's really interesting that they've kind of introduced in the story to kind of show his experience on a police force, and fighting for good and what that means for him without really knowing much about his morals to begin with. But it's really interesting, a really cool series because, like I said, it plays with the detective aspect and the law enforcement aspect really well. And basically, if I could explain it without giving too much away on the story, it's Rambo meets John Wick. So, like, because that's basically what his character is. He's this big brooding guy that like fights the bad guys, and he comes into the scene like Rambo and just goes to town on these people and other superhumans. But yeah, like I just remember like a spread in particular where it's like a full page and he's coming in with his gun and he says his little one-liner and it's just perfect. It's like a cartoon version of Rambo. It's a really fun book. I highly recommend you check it out. If you ever want to borrow books, I could send them your way. I'm sure they're available digitally, and then they're pretty available in most local comic stores. If they happen to have Image Comics, that's a staple of the brand. So pretty easy to find. But I highly recommend checking out Savage Dragon. Have you all heard of Savage Dragon? And what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I have heard of Savage Dragon. It's different from Imagine Dragons.
That's what I was gonna say.
So you do. No, but it looks cool. I mean, like it almost reminds me of he looks like a really old horror movie that my dad always talked to me about, which was Creature of the Black Lagoon. Yeah, he looks very similar to that. Like his look is similar to it, but I guess they put more of a twist on him being like a hero, I guess, or
right, but also an outsider. So like there are some like the Creature from the Black Lagoon, where it's like people don't know what to think about him, but like fighting for good. So they're like, yeah, he's on our team, But as soon as something goes wrong, it's like he's the first to blame.
Right.
There's that aspect of like, is he a hero? Is he not? Can we trust him on our police force? But at the same time, we need somebody like him because crime is just through the roof right now, and so there's all these different questions that it asks, through each issue that's really interesting, and it's not just a two-dimensional character. There's layers to this guy, and they kind of peel back each one of those layers throughout the issues. But then, like I said, also they just have fun with it and shoot them up as well and beat people up.
Yeah. Yeehaw.
Yeehaw. Dude, you got Dragon, Cop, buddy comedy, horror, action movie I'm in a comic book.
Yeah.
So, I was like, you jam-packed everything Taylor wants in a comic
everything.
book.
I mean, come on. Who wouldn't want to see that? One, everybody loves detective mysteries. Everybody loves superheroes. Some people like police. Other people don't. But I mean, this is the character who is the separation from he's a cop, but he's also a hero, but he's not. It's one of those that can try to bridge the gap between a hero and a police officer. Yeah. And I personally love it. I think it's a great concept, and obviously it's been very successful because it's still coming around. So I'll give it my stamp of approval. Absolutely. I think you're the one that actually introduced me to that, Reese.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna keep pushing it on you until you read it because I promise you you're gonna love it. It's a great idea, and it's like I said, it stood the test of time. Each book brings on a new episode. I mean, there's obviously an overarching storyline, but like each issue kind of builds on the last in a way where it's like, we're going to tell this story. Now we're going to tell this story. It's like, oh, remember that story? We're going to tie that up here. And so it's really, really cool how they approach that. And like I said, I haven't gotten too deep into him to know everything about him. But like I said, from the first 3 issues, basically what they put out to kind of get everybody's reaction from, it's a really fun series. And I'm going to continue to read and find more issues in my collection to kind of go off of. But those first 3 books are solid. Highly recommend it.
All right. Well, cool. Very cool. Yeah, I'll definitely have to check it out. All right. Well, for my book, I have selected something from DC Vertigo. I have it sitting with me right here because I love looking at the cover. Yeah, isn't that a surprise? DC Vertigo. But it is a comic by the name of Preacher.
Ooh.
There's right there. Kind of cool artwork, and then there's the back. This is actually a trade. This is volumes 1 through 12. I'm not going to talk about all of them. So sorry about that. Also, I haven't read all of them.
Here's the synopsis. Where are my reading glasses at?
Yeah, actually, let me look at the back. The back what I was going to do. So basically here it says, it talks about the Reverend Jesse Custer. He tracks down a fugitive and he tries to make him answer for the sufferings of his creation. And basically it says he goes all over from New York City to backwoods in Louisiana, and he's trying to cut a righteous path across the soul of America. So that sounds pretty cool to me. Yeah. And I've looked into it, and it looks like it deals with everything between heaven versus hell and what's morally right and wrong, good versus evil. And it kind of makes you question that in the sense it's like, well, is this really evil, or we just say it's evil because some guy decided it's evil? Or is this good because someone says it's good, or is it actually the right thing to do, or is it benefiting them in a way that's like, they're just saying, oh, this is good, so you should do it, and just take my word and don't question it. Stuff like that. So I'm like, It's also, there's a TV series on it that I've really been wanting to watch.
Yes.
Also, I really like looking at I'm trying to find a good page here to show you.
Pictures.
The pictures are cool because I don't really know how to read. Taylor, you get it.
Hey,
I get it now.
Yeah. And see, there's a cop right there to that page I opened up. So there you go. It's got great storytelling, which that's another reason why I love DC Vertigo comics like Sandman, because the storytelling is like great in it. I just read the first volume so far, but it's already got like great stuff. So yeah, it's I think it's gonna be a really cool read, and that's about it.
Challenges the natural paradigm of mankind.
Yeah.
Good, evil. Who wrote the line? Where's it at? You gotta love those movies, TV shows, and books, because the more that people can question their beliefs is the more that they can understand why they are their beliefs in the first place.
Exactly.
Okay. Right. Because you don't want to blindly go into something without knowing exactly what you're doing, why you don't like it, why you love it, why is this good, why is this evil. And we live in a world now where a lot of people don't get that. They don't get educated on why they should like this, why they shouldn't like this. Here's my belief. I'm going to let you choose to accept it, deny it because of these reasons. People are now, you like this, you don't like this. I'm not going to tell you why. Just do what I say.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay. So offering these books. Yeah, go ahead.
With little information on top of that, it's like, I'm going to believe what I believe with this little information that I know about it. And
right. And the book is this big, and I'm only giving you this much. Do your research.
And not only that, but I feel like people are inclined to be like, well, I believe this, and I'm right, and I don't like your way because it's different, and I don't want to have a civil discussion, so I automatically hate you for it. And it's just like, wow, really? You don't want to even attempt to listen to them? And they're like, nope.
2020.
Yeah.
Hashtag 2020.
But what I do know is that we all picked stories that cause you to think and question, whether it's the morals or just the norm in general. And something like a book called Preacher, you would initially think, okay, what is this about? Is it a religious book? Is it, what is being accomplished here? But it's actually taking the idea of what you think a preacher is, turning it into this fictional character that does all these different things and questions all these different things, and then leaves you kind of to reflect on that and be like, oh, wow, what did I just read? It's like, did he really just do that? And he's a preacher, it's like, does it tell you much if he's like a preacher, or is this more of like metaphorical kind of thing with his character?
Right.
Yeah, but then there's also moments where he's not like pure evil. It's just because he has moments where he does do good things, but there's also, there's just it puts human qualities into what people put on a pedestal and think, oh, because they hold this position, they should be holy 100% of the time. It's like, well, no, everyone's human. Like, everyone's going to mess up. They're just trying to be a better version of themselves. And so that's where it's, people don't understand. They think, oh, I'm going to catch that one mistake you make, but not regard the 100 like good deeds you've done. And for some reason, people eat that up, and that's why people like, rumors and gossip and, bad things. Like, so we're not going to focus on the good of humanity. It's just
one of the biggest misconceptions is people don't realize that they can fail, and failure is the biggest motivator and educator that makes you a better person. So having these comics that introduce that and say it's okay to fail, let me show you how this person failed in a way so you can learn from it, and you can go out there and not try to be successful all the time and never fail, because you don't learn from success. Sure, you might be kind of happy, you might get some things, but if you don't fail or anything like that, you're never going to learn. You're never going to build character. You're never going to improve. You're just going to keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. And those are the people that you see manically depressed, sad, and just bad things happen to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people look at people and think, how'd they get so successful? Like, what the heck? Why can't I be like them? They think it's like a, 2-step program or something, but it's like, man, buddy, you don't know. Like, they've been failing left and right, and they just haven't showed it, and you haven't seen it. And so it's like, people just think they're automatically entitled to success when it's like, well, no, you gotta stumble before you can start actually walking and running.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a quote the other day that like defined success in a way I've never really thought about it. And basically what it was saying is success is the measure of doing something that you love and doing it well.
Yeah,
like, that's
absolutely.
To me, that spoke a lot, because I do something that I love and I feel like I do a great job most of the time. And there's a lot of people out there that have a definition of success that doesn't align with that. They're not doing something they love, but they want to be successful in something that they hate, or they want to have this bank account, or they want to have this kind of house or this car. And so it's like success is what you can make of it, but doing something that you love. Because I feel like, to me, that's successful when you're happy, when you're not depressed, like you were saying, or sad about things that are going on around you. It's what you do with, what you love is where you can find success. And it's why I love comics, because a lot of them ask these questions, secretly, and you're like, wow, I just got blown away by this panel because they said something. All it took was one little 2-inch panel to change your life, or to change your thought process on something. And that's just how powerful art is. That's why I can't not recommend comics to anyone anymore.
No, and to go off of that specifically, that is one thing that you gotta love Stan Lee for, because he was the first one to introduce a superhero with problems.
Yeah,
everybody like how I said that. So like problems. No, but seriously, I mean, he was the first one to say, yes, okay, we're not all heroes. Let's create a situation that people can actually learn from, instead of reading and going, I want to be a god among men, but not work the way to get up there. I mean, I heard someone yesterday. I heard someone the other day say, man, I hate that I have to work to make money. And I was like,
yeah,
okay.
Like, there's no jobs available. Yeah, unless you want to work 40 hours a week.
Yeah. You mean people aren't just going to give it to me?
Oh, sheesh.
I was expecting a check in the mail.
Yeah, but no, that is true, because, and I think it puts human qualities to, like you said, like, I want to be like them, but now it's like, oh, I can relate to them. So in a way, I'm kind of like them. And that makes people realize their true potential. And they're like, oh, well, then if they can do it, I can do it. Instead of, like again, like I said, putting them in an area where it's like, oh, I can never achieve that, making it seem impossible. It's like, well, that doesn't encourage anyone.
Well, I mean, like Spider-Man, he was a high schooler with high school problems, and That's why he became so popular, because everyone can relate to that. Not everyone can relate to Clark Kent and Superman, because he's just, that's his character is big and gigantic. But to your point of Stan Lee and what he did for comics, his response to DC and Superman, Batman, and all them wasn't, hey, I'm going to go try to do that but better. It's, I'm going to try to do that but different. And so that's, the rest is history. But what he did is basically what we're talking about here, changing people's thoughts. He introduced one of the first African American superheroes, a lot of the first women superheroes. And so it's like changing the conversation, making people think differently, and then allowing people to have conversations like we're having right now about life from a comic book. That's powerful stuff. It's like this.
Yeah, and that was all thanks to me and my comic. So there you go.
Good choice, Lane. Good choice.
There's a lot of books that do that, but Preacher definitely does that in a big way.
Yeah, for sure. It's actually really excited to dive into it.
We could have a podcast just off of this.
Great stuff.
All right, fellas. Well, I guess that wraps it all up. I think I'm out of ideas. I don't know if y'all got anything to add to it. Guess we'll close it out here.
This is y'all's show. I'm just here.
You're just here. You just work here, huh?
Where's my check? It's in the mail?
Yeah, we actually just sent it out, so should we get it soon?
Good.
Yeah,
I thought I'd have to work for it.
Yeah, there you go. All right, folks. Well, that about covers it. Thanks for listening and joining in. This has been episode 3 of the Random Jam podcast. Go like and follow all of our social media, and comment, subscribe. Let us know if there's anyone or anything you want us to talk about. Taylor, where can the folks follow you at?
So I've got I just created a new YouTube channel. Some things happened with mine, and I decided to make a new one where I review games, I play games, I do videos. It's called the Gold Grade Gamer. So I say that because I like to do a lot of reviews to see if people can give my gold grade. Makes no sense, but I'm definitely rolling with it. So you can find me there on Instagram and on Facebook. Gold Grade Gamer. That's it. I'll be there. Videos every week.
Okay, perfect.
And then you'll be out there checking out those crime scenes.
And I will be in a different persona out there chasing crime scenes and catching bad guys.
Yeah,
so
there you go.
You just admitted you're bad.
Superhero. Dang.
There you go.
I've never seen me and him in the same place before, so maybe I am.
That's too much logic.
This is one room. This is only one room in my 100-room house.
Whoa. There you go.
There you go.
All right. Well, until next time, peace out.
Bye.